Advisory Committee meeting to order. So our first order of business is the appointment of a new chair and vice chair. So with the committee's consent, we may deal with each of the two appointments separately. So to begin, may I have a motion to nominate a chair for the year 2022 of the Accessibility Advisory Committee? I'm not sure how this works. Is someone supposed to say something?
We can maintain the sorry. We can maintain the same people, right?
Yeah.
This is the second year. So my proposal is to maintain the same.
Okay, so we have a motion to keep the current chair as well as the current vice chair. So we have that being moved by John. Do we have a second on that?
Matthew?
Matthew,
I'll second that.
You'll second
John.
that? Okay, that's good. I'm also in favor of that. Are there any objections to that? Okay, so it sounds like I'll call the vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. So we will continue on with the same chair and vice chair for 2022. Okay, so that brings us, I suppose, to the approval of the agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. And a second?
John.
Thanks, John. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda?
Why is it so short?
COVID.
I don't. I'm not sure. Does anyone have an answer to that?
I thought it'd be longer.
Site plan applications usually between December and January. There isn't many coming through. March is already double what we have tonight. So that's just usually how it is. So that's why it's a little bit short on the site plan application side.
Any further questions on that? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. So declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, there are none, it sounds like. Okay, so moving on to receipt of the minutes. May I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of December 8th, 2021?
John.
Thanks, John. In a second.
Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, so I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Oh, any opposed? And that carries. Okay, and we have no delegations this evening. So that brings us to our matters for consideration. Item 6.1. First we have a presentation by Lisa Worth, manager for recreation. And this is regarding a gymnasium addition. And it will be a 10-minute presentation. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew. And a second?
We'll go with John.
Okay, thanks, John. Welcome, Lisa. Did you want to lead us on this now?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I'm just going to share my screen here. I do have a short PowerPoint. Just a moment. Are you seeing that?
No.
A slide? You're not? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here. Are
If
you
aren't able to
that?
get it, Lisa, you can email it over to me and I can present it on your behalf if you aren't able to get it up.
Yeah, are you guys still aren't seeing that?
No.
No.
See it.
Sorry, I thought I had this all set up. I'm not sure. My share screen doesn't seem to be enabling into shares. Like it's just doesn't seem to be enabling my share screen. Okay, let me try this one more time. You're not seeing it now, are you?
No.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I am going to email it to you, Matt. Just a second.
Yep.
So sorry. I thought I had this all set up.
Docked points immediately, Lisa.
Okay.
All right, I got it. Let me just open it up for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty, everyone should be able to see that, right?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
No problem.
So I'm here to talk about the Sark Gymnasium addition. So we are embarking on an addition to the Stronach Aurora Recreation Center. It's a gymnasium addition. Matt, if you could flip the slide. So this project was actually identified back in 2016 as part of the Parks and Rec Master Plan. And in fact, there was discussion even back in 2003, 2004 as part of the construction of the Stronach Aurora Recreation Center. So it's been a discussion for a long time. And through the master plan process in 2016, it was identified that there is a shortage of gymnasiums in town for community access. There are a number of school gymnasiums, but it can be quite difficult to get access to those facilities sometimes. So during the 2021 budget deliberations, council did approve the construction of the single gymnasium. Also includes a little bit of multi-purpose space, some administration space, and it has a budget of 8.2 million is the approved budget at this time. And we also wanted to do some community consultation as a part of the project with the user groups that would be using the gym. So that was another directive of council at the time of budget approval. We went through our procurement process, and the consulting firm CSMP was awarded the contract sort of back in November. They are very well versed in building gymnasiums, both municipal, institutional, and have a lot of experience in working with documents such as our facility accessibility design standards. So that's been provided to them, very well versed on accessibility standards, and they have some great experience in building gymnasiums and that sort of thing. So we started our work really in earnest with the consultants in November 2021. Next slide, please. So just to sort of show you where this is going to go on the site, it's that little open space, and that's the view from, yeah, right in there. That's the view from the southwest. So Wellington is just south there. So it's going to side on to the pool, and then you've got the arenas to the north and the little preschool rooms to the north as well. Next slide, please. And this is just how it looks in relation to the interior of the building. So again, it's in that open space. There's a hallway beside it. Then there's the pool change rooms, the pool, and then again to the north, we've got the arenas and our preschool and toddler rooms. Next slide, please, Matt. So as I mentioned, we did some community consultation, specifically with the groups that would be interested in using this gym to provide services and programs to the community. So we held sessions in November and December, and we also did written surveys to some of the community groups who couldn't attend those sessions. And we talked about the size of the gymnasium, the usage, the lighting, windows, acoustics, all those sorts of things. And we got some really good feedback and information. One of the things that came out of that conversation was the desire for a double gymnasium. As it would allow for more formal competitive use. The user groups told us that a single gymnasium was just too small to run sort of tournament type events. We could still run and use it for competitive games, but not in that tournament format. And then obviously just the potential that comes with having all of that extra space for other uses like fitness classes and children's programs and summer camps and special events like fairs and trade shows and that type of thing. And a divider wall curtain could allow that space to be divided to allow multiple uses at the same time, or to accommodate more participants and allow for bigger groups of people to access the space. So as I mentioned, there are obviously a number of gymnasiums in town in the school system, and we have one other municipal gymnasium at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. But a lot of them are not large enough. The one at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex is very well utilized during prime time, but it does present some challenges with its ceiling height. The walking track encroaches a little bit around the perimeter at the top, so it again isn't great for activities like volleyball and basketball, where you've got balls that are need a high ceiling clearance and potentially are hitting barriers and that type of thing. And again, we're finding school access is just getting more and more difficult. So we landed on the single gymnasium. We did have a discussion with council about the double gymnasium. We presented it to them at general government last week. We realized it was important that they knew what we heard at the consultation sessions. But the double gymnasium presents a lot of challenges. It's not a great fit for the site, and it comes with a budget number that we haven't there's some obviously a much larger budget required for a double gymnasium, but we wanted council to be aware of what we heard at the consultations. So it looks like we are going to go ahead with the single gymnasium. It's a 24-foot ceiling height. The user groups have told us that that's sufficient for gameplay, practice play, that type of thing. And again, I think I mentioned that it does include some storage space, change rooms, washroom, a small spectator space. We're looking at retractable bleachers, but again, we're in the very preliminary stages of this. Some multi-purpose space, and then some renovations to the existing administration customer service space. New administration space was always a part of this project. And we realized, again, just sort of going through the process, that the existing administration customer service space is very, it's not very functional. The customer service space is well into the building, so customers are coming through the building, and we've learned through COVID that nice to have, because we've set up a sort of a temporary greeter counter more toward the front of the building during COVID. We've learned that it's nice to have that customer service greeting more toward the front of the building. And the administration space, again, staff have outgrown that space. As the town grows and we provide more programs and services, we've been hiring more staff, and we need places for those staff to do their work. And we're finding that currently at the SARC, staff are sharing spaces that were only meant for one person, or we've set up sort of makeshift workstations in spaces that were never meant to have staff working in them. So it's a good opportunity to take a look at that situation, try and rectify it with some renovations, and plan for the future a little bit for future growth and that type of thing. The other thing that's key with this design is that the gymnasium will have a separate corridor from the pool. And so the pool change rooms have their own corridor right now. It's a load-bearing, fire-rated corridor. If we decide to share that corridor with the gymnasium, it means a lengthy closure, likely, during construction at this building, and which would mean a lengthy closure of the pool, because there would be no access to the change rooms. So we decided that to avoid that situation, and also some flexibility so that the gym corridor could be locked off when it's not in use, or the pool corridor could be locked off when it's not in use, there would be a separate corridor for access to the gymnasium from the lobby, and it would be exactly parallel to the corridor leading down to the pool change rooms and that type of thing. Next slide, please, Matt. So this is how the gymnasium looks on the site. So you can see the single gym there. It's oriented north-south. Some of those lines there, this whole site sits within the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. And there is some wetlands and some provincially significant wetlands and some floodplain that we need to be cognizant of. The black line from the edge of the building, just to your left there, Matt, to the exterior, just a little bit further left. Yep, that black line to the vertical, that's a 30-meter setback. We are supposed to be within a 30-meter setback. That purple line is provincially significant wetland. So you can see there is a little bit of encroachment in that bottom corner. But the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority has told that we've had some preliminary conversations. They don't have any major concerns with that small encroachment. The double gymnasium, on the other hand, had a major encroachment into that area. So again, it was a big issue with putting a double gym on this site. It didn't really fit. Next slide, please, Matt. So this is just a typical gymnasium floor layout. I know it's all these lines can be a little bit hard on the eyes, but the black square, the big outline, is your high school basketballs, your typical high school basketball size. Your blue is your center court volleyball. Yellow is your practice volleyball, so 2 courts can fit that way, and your gray is your practice basketball. Red is badminton, so 3 badminton courts can fit in this single gym. And then just inside, you can't really see it because they're white, but is pickleball. Pickleball is almost exactly the same lines as badminton, so it would allow for 3 pickleball courts. And just to the right there, you can see that spectator seating just on the very right. Those are small retractable bleacher systems at this point that hold about 50 to 60 spectators maximum, which is plenty for this sort of gym with non-tournament use. So it's should be good for spectator space there. Yeah, thanks, Matt. And the next slide, please. So I talked a little bit about the site fit challenges. Like I said, the entire site sits within the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and encroaches a little bit on setbacks. So there are some studies and things required, but as I said, initial conversation with the Conservation Authority, they're fairly confident that there's not a lot of mitigation. There won't be a lot of detrimental effects, so therefore not a lot of mitigation required. But again, we're very preliminary stages, but there are some studies and things that still need to be done. And there is a sloping grade there, so there's going to have to be some architectural engineering work done to accommodate for that sloping grade and what the outside edge of that building is going to look like. Next slide, please, Matt. And again, this just shows you these blue lines are the Lake Simcoe region, the floodplain. So like I said, almost the entire building sits within the floodplain. And there, like I said, just some studies, some considerations that we need to do. Next slide, please, Matt. And the budget. So at this point, the budget is has increased from the original approved budget, and that's due mainly to an increase in construction costs and that type of thing between when this was initially costed and now, and COVID is certainly a factor in that. However, it is a very, very high level budget number. It's based on $500 a square foot for the new construction and $200 a square foot for the renovated space. So as I said, very high level, but more than what this project was initially budgeted for. So there does need to be further conversation about that number. We need to refine the project, refine the design, and get to a much more accurate budget number. Next slide, please, Matt. So again, just in conclusion, we did consider several options, including that double gymnasium and a couple of other layouts. And we feel like we landed at this point on what we've incorporated the comments we heard from community consultation. We've incorporated ways to mitigate disruption to the rest of the building during construction. We've tried to be efficient and take advantage of improvements that we could make during this process, but I can't say it enough. It's very high level at this point and absolutely subject to change. Nothing is final or written in stone with this new project. What we do know for sure is a new gymnasium will be very well utilized by the community, both, by the sports clubs that we have in town and the different activities that are going to want to use the gymnasium, plus the services that the town delivers. We certainly, staff have lots of programming ideas in terms of how to use this space, and are very excited at the prospect of a new space to be able to offer more services and get more people into our buildings and participating in our programs. So overall, very excited about this new space. Very well received by as I said, the sports clubs, and I think it'll service the community quite well. So we're very excited about this moving ahead. So that is the end of the slideshow. I am happy to take any questions, try and answer your questions. If you have any, like I said, thoughts or questions, happy to do my best to answer.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Lisa. So we will open up the floor now for discussion, comments, questions from the committee.
So I'll help get the juices flowing, Lisa. I know I discussed this with you in the preliminary discussions. I can see over here on the map that you guys have designated a couple of emergency exits. This one is existing, leaving the Sark pool, and this is looking like a new exit that's going to be coming out onto the wetlands, leading onto the South Park or south end of the Stronach. Is there any indication that we plan on creating some kind of level field here for this to be a proper emergency exit for individuals? Because the grade there is quite significant. This is all staircases currently leading out of here. So if we're adding in a whole new set of population coming into this gymnasium, I think that should be a strong consideration, is really kind of grading this area properly so that way we have an actual emergency route that leads out over here to the east side of the Stronach.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been a repeated topic of conversation, the consultants are very well aware of that. It hasn't been engineered yet. I don't know what it'll look like, but it's very much top of mind for the consultants in terms of that slope and that grade, and the fact that we need to engineer it in a way that it's, more even.
Yeah. And then I know they weren't sure back in November, December. I don't know if there's any updates. The current structure that we have coming here, running through the pool change room, again, quite a steep grade, or pretty much close to as maximum as we should be going. Is there any talk about creating platforms here, or how they're going to be creating the entrances? Because it looks like the gym vestibule does plan to be in the center of the gym over here. Do we know if they're going to be building a platform for people to be able to come in, or are we going to have a graded entry into the gymnasium?
I don't have that information yet, and I'm not sure that they've really made that decision yet either. I think they're still sort of looking for the options. Yeah. And then for the committee,
just so you guys know, a couple of the discussion points, I brought them up from, it was December 14th that we met. A couple of things that we did talk about with the consultants. We discussed the grades, which I was just mentioning. There was some discussion around the change rooms as well, the functionality over there. Lisa, remind me, I think we were talking about a universal washroom being included in there, right? So that was it.
Yep.
Lisa did mention the auditory aspect. So a part of the accessibility plan is doing proper acoustics at the Stronach Recreation Complex. So that has been discussed as a part of this gymnasium proposal, which was good. Accessibility equipment, dimmable lights, operators, and all those pieces have also been discussed as a part of this original proposal. So I wanted to just let you guys know that those things have been brought up to the consultant when I first met with them back in December. Just food for thought in case you guys have any other questions towards Lisa.
I had a quick question. Can you hear me? I just can't tell.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just wondering, because you talked about seating and pull-out bleachers, is there a plan for spectator seating to be accessible in any way?
Yes, and again, it's all very preliminary, but there is seating. A couple of things. I mean, there will be additional seating within the gymnasium along the wall. I mean, what we do now at the leisure complex is we'll just bring chairs in or that type of thing, because they don't have bleachers. The other thing is there will likely be a viewer area from the lobby. So a glass panel so if someone wanted to watch but didn't want to go in the gymnasium, there would be sort of a glass panel from the lobby where someone could just sit or stand and look right into the gym. So a couple of options there, but again, we're not finalized by any stretch, but a couple of options.
Do we know when we'd go into a site plan application process for this, Lisa? Do we have a rough estimate?
We're February now. June.
Okay.
Because we're a ways away from the final design, right? So
yeah, I was asking because I think Ashita, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think all committees end in June. So if we wanted at least a round of committee comments prior to the election period, we would have to get it done before the June deadline, essentially.
Okay, so we'll keep that in mind, absolutely.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. All committee meetings will conclude in June.
Are there any further comments or questions for Lisa? Doesn't sound like there are. Thank you again, Lisa, for that presentation. You've given us a lot to think about with that. It's an exciting project, I think, and I look forward to seeing the site plans on that and sort of viewing it more in detail. That's excellent. All right, so if there are no further comments or questions, and it doesn't look like there are, I will go ahead and call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, so thank you very much again, Lisa. And that brings us to item 6.2, memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding site plan application SP 2021-13. This is submission number 1, and it's for 390 Addison Hall Circle. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. And a second?
Haley.
Oh, Haley,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you, Haley. Perfect. Okay, Matt, did you want to take the lead on this?
I sure will, unless you want to, Madam Chair, you're more than welcome to.
No, thanks.
All righty, so
this is well.
So this is going to be the first submission that we're taking a look at the site plan. Does anyone know if PDF actually allows for a pointer? I really enjoyed doing that for the PowerPoint presentation there. Anyway, I'll investigate that a little bit later on, but that would be a useful tool, I think, for everyone to kind of follow me around a little bit easier with the mouse. Okay, So we have an industrial complex that's coming in here. Both the site plan applications today are very easy and we'll probably get through them quite quickly. I'm going to be turning my face. I have my second screen to the side of me here today while I take a look at the notes that I wrote down here. So just bear with me when I'm doing that. As you can see, the industrial complex is quite simple. You have your entry coming into the main buildings. They do meet the requirements for the barrier-free parking. So you can see that they have currently 5 designated barrier-free spots, evenly distributed between the type A spots and the type B. So they have 2 type A's right over here close to the entrance, and then the outskirt ones over here are the type B's. Accessible aisles and curb depressions are included, and then you can see they have the barrier-free signage included in the site plan applications as well. They have an exterior path of travel running along the entire side of the building, leading up to the front entrance over here, located right in the middle. And then they have a couple of emergency staircases on both sides of the building. Before I go into the comments, I'll show you guys very quickly the back side of the building as well. So you can see as they come around the side of the building, they have additional parking over here. Nothing for barrier-free parking. This is most likely going to be staff parking that's kind of leading into the back of the building for those that don't require barrier-free parking. And then you can see that they have the ports for the trucks to do their loading into the industrial building as well. So again, very, very simple site plan application. In terms of comments that were provided for this site plan application, our regular one for the barrier-free entrances located, as we discussed, in the back as well as the front is for automatic door openers with the proper time delays to be included in there. Installation of proper tactile indicators. So like I was mentioning, there are some proposed staircases located for this building, and that includes asking them for consideration towards the evacuation chairs that we've added as our standard in these site plan application requests. And then lastly, the one thing that I kind of caught here, and I couldn't tell from the measurements, they do have a bike rack located very close over here to the entrance of the emergency staircase. So I requested to ensure that we at least have the 1.5 meter exterior path width that's required for anyone coming along this sidewalk. It's not indicated in the site plan application, so we'll see when they come back with their comments whether this meets it. If it does, that means it can stay, but most likely, based on what I'm seeing here, I'm assuming they're probably gonna have to slide this a little bit over onto the island, but we'll get confirmation on that piece a little bit later on. The last comment that I provided is for, and I was speaking to the planners about this, this seems a little bit tight. You can see that it is 2.2 meters, but I did request for rest areas to be included along the side of the building as well, because it is a fairly decent size industrial building. And so rest areas to be included along the exterior path of travel, as long as the rest areas that they're proposing don't impede on that 1.5 meter expectation that we have for the concrete sidewalk. I'm just going to jump over to the other drawings so we can just go through them. And then if you guys have any questions, we can obviously go through those as well. So this is just taking a look at the interior. As you can see, absolutely basic at this point in the site plan application process. So they just highlighted that there is a mezzanine. And again, you can see that we have our emergency staircases included, but not much more information past that. As you can see, there's the double doors that we requested for the automatic door openers. And then towards the back, you have your loading ports, but nothing too crazy over here. Here's just an elevation view, so you can see the fronts and the backs of the building. So over here where you see these blue windows and panes, this is going to be the front of the building, and the loading ports on the back of the building over here. South elevation on this third picture. And then lastly, this is going to be your north. So these are the sides of your buildings. And that was it. So like I said, extremely simple site plan application. So I'm just going to jump back to the first one because that's realistically where you guys are going to have the most questions, if any. So the floor is open, Madam Chair, to the committee to request any other comments or questions.
All right, so are there any comments or questions from the committee?
Madam Chair, could I just ask a question? Just washrooms, office space. I see some washrooms at the back. It just doesn't seem like it's a functioning space.
Yeah, so they're not really giving us much detail in terms of what it's going to look like. So you can see right now that they have indicated like spaces for these washrooms. They're most likely going to have to update this based on when the planners give the Ontario Building Code piece on here, because this to me looks like, if we zoom in, like this is not going to be a sizable universal washroom. We can tack that comment onto our comments as well. But from what I'm seeing over here, this is not a universal washroom. And based on the OBC, they do have to provide at least one in the new building. And then as you can see in the front over here, there's nothing else. But these ones, I can tell just off this, these are going to be a little bit too small to pass off as a universal washroom.
We'll make those comments. Does this come back to us, or this is our one and only shot at any?
Nope. Nope. Usually we get about 2 to 3 submissions, so this will come back to us.
Okay, that was it for me.
Yep, I can add that comment in.
So just the washrooms at the back by the loading doors. One's probably a driver's washroom. The other one's probably an employee's washroom. So, and then the question about the mezzanine level, is that where the offices are going to be? We'll probably find out later, I guess.
Yeah, they're not giving like we can zoom in on the area over here, but they really haven't provided too much information. You can see that they're indicating the ladder to the roof. They have a pump room located at the front of the building, but that's pretty much all they're indicating at this first stage in the submission. Yeah, there's no other detail in this one. And then,
not much at all. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And then let me just double check these ones, but I was pretty sure that there wasn't any indication, anything else here.
More architectural than anything.
Yeah. And then let's just check. I think it was the elevations were next, right? Yeah, these ones don't indicate anything. So like I said, these are very preliminary drawings at this point. No. So not too much on the insides, but I can also put the comment in. Usually they're pretty good about giving us the interior drawings on the second, third submissions, but I can put a note in here as well that we're requesting them on the second submission.
Are there any further comments or questions? Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, and the only thing that I might add, and I know we talked about this, it doesn't seem like, and I didn't make this comment because I don't see an existing exterior path of travel over here, but there is no real way to, it's an industrial building, so you're not going to really have a lot of public coming in here unless they're visiting for the building specifically, but it doesn't look like they have an exterior path of travel running along Addison Hall here for us to even request a crosswalk or a safe path into the industrial building off of.
Yeah, that was my biggest sort of wondering, is whether there would be any kind of need for public access here, but
yeah, because like you can see on the opposite side of Addison, there's the existing concrete sidewalk, but I don't think an industrial building is really going to warrant us requesting a crosswalk going in there.
No. Okay, so if there are no further questions on this one, I guess we can go ahead and call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Moving on to item 6.3, memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding site plan application SP 2021-08. This is submission number 3 for 20 and 25 Mavronack Boulevard. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew, and a second.
John.
Joanne.
I heard John.
Go ahead.
I heard John first, so I'll say John. Thanks both of you. Okay, Matt, you can start us on this.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So we have seen this a couple of times at this point. So I wanted to give you guys a very quick update and a final concern that we kind of got vetoed on. So I want to just go over everything. So previously, Matthew, you were requesting a 4-way stop. I did speak to the transportation analyst about it, and it doesn't seem like it's warranted in this neighborhood for that area. We did get the crosswalks for the parkettes. So that was good. So they did go through the, originally they were mentioning that they didn't want to go through the parking that they added in over there. And so the transportation analyst and myself were in some long conversations with the planning team about this piece, but we did get the crosswalks installed coming into the park on the west side and on the east side as well. As you can see, there is a crosswalk that has been added in. So there is paths of travel that lead into each of the parks and creates pretty decent connectivity in the neighborhood. The one piece that I wanted to mention to you guys, and there's not too much debate, I just wanted to let you guys know that I made comments on behalf of the committee on this piece. One of the issues I had with this site plan application, the exterior path of travel, as you can see, leading from Wellington past the seniors building. So there was this addition which the committee requested. It was received. So we had the exterior path of travel added in over here next to the seniors building, as well as the back of the neighborhood leading into Turp Drive. Fantastic. The issue is this sidewalk leads pretty much up to the park and originally stopped here. And so we were requesting that instead of having an individual that's coming in from the seniors building, for example, or Wellington, climbing up through the sidewalk, the current way that this has been mapped out is the request is for people to then take the crosswalk going right across the street, going further northbound on Turp Drive all the way up to the top, and then having to cross again in order to get to Hulse in order to then go over to Mavernack. What I was kind of battling with, and the transportation analyst was completely on our side with this, and we kind of went back and forth with the planning team on this piece, is we really wanted this exterior path of travel to continue right through the parkette next to the home over here and then wrap around Hulse. There was a lot of pushback from the developer, and ultimately the now previous director of planning and development, David Waters, just retired, so that's why he's no longer there. But he did kind of put a final stamp on this, saying that this will be the approved exterior path of travel. So I did go to bat for the committee on really pushing for this exterior path of travel to connect and have that true connectivity on Turp Drive all the way up to Hulse. But it looks like the director and the developer decided that ultimately it's just going to be this kind of zigzag motion in the neighborhood in order to just go northbound all the way up to Hulse Way. So wanted to just bring this up, that I did make those comments on behalf of the committee. I don't know that there's really room or opportunity for us to continue to push this piece, but both myself and the transportation analyst did say that we do not approve or like that the plan does not include the exterior path of travel. So they did not have our blessing on this piece, but it looks like they are going to proceed with it regardless. So wanted to just let the committee know, because we've taken a look at this quite a bit in the last couple of months. And so that's the update on where we're at with this subdivision going on Mavernack Boulevard. Any questions or comments?
So the stop sign said no. And that
Yeah.
was the one up at this intersection, this new intersection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he said it. And Michael Batt's fantastic. I'll like he's all for adding these pieces. He just said it really didn't warrant it at this time. And so we're not going ahead with the four-way stops over here. And he was the one fighting with us for these crosswalks to be added in, because we did have some pushback about the crosswalks. And he was also fighting with us to try to get this exterior path of travel added in towards Hulse.
Yeah.
So I'm disappointed. And the rationale, just so everybody knows, I think there's a couple of zoning pieces where there just isn't enough space. I think there is an opportunity for there to be an exemption for this to be more usable for those that are coming across. I know Markham is big on ensuring that both sides of the street do have sidewalks in their neighborhoods. So we did try to make this push, but ultimately we were shut down. So again, wanted to just give you guys the update on that piece and where we kind of stand on this specific area.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I can just ask a question. This was at the General Committee, I believe, last week.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, I don't know if it was this issue. There was some type of discussion. I'd have to look back at at the video, but council hasn't approved the site plan yet. That will come at the end of the month. I'm just wondering whether your comments regarding that, while the director may not have liked it and the developer may not have liked it, that doesn't necessarily mean council can't push for it. So I'm wondering if in the minutes or in somewhere that your comments or your objection would be there so that council can at least be aware of it and have some type of a discussion.
Yeah, I know Ashita will be taking the minutes, so it will be included in that piece. Ashita, correct me if I'm wrong. And then Councillor Gallo, I don't mind sending you the memorandum that both myself and Michael also put in on the site plan application. And again, if ultimately there is some serious zoning issues, I understand, but I know that we and council members look at this on a regular basis where we have exemptions to the zoning bylaws on these pieces. I think it really makes true sense for this to be one, like we're talking about a small stint of sidewalk over here where we have a truly connected side of the road over here rather than asking an individual to cross the road twice in order to just go northbound on this street. So I think it makes the most sense.
If you do have anything, I'll commit to at least getting better informed on what the details were or what the rationale was on both sides.
Yep, no problem.
I have no problems bringing up at council. The other thing, I think there was a discussion about the visitor parking spots on block 23 there, and something to do with, I don't know if there was the exterior path of travel, but there was yeah, an issue.
Is it these ones up on the top or the ones?
Yeah,
on
those ones there at the top, and just where that snow storage or turning that corner or sidewalk there was, I don't know if you're aware of any issues that were in that corner.
When I was in that meeting with planning, this piece was not being discussed. I think your meeting with council may have been after we met with David. This was probably end of November, beginning of December. So a couple of months back at this point. So the discussion that you guys may have had over here may have been a little bit afterwards. But I do see the point that may have been discussed, right? You do have the exterior path of travel going around here that essentially ends at the visitor parking. And then really the only other sidewalk is located over here on block 28. And then what does this look like? Block 29, essentially. So we're asking people to, if you're in these blocks, to essentially walk southbound, cross to this sidewalk. And then again, you're having that same journey, right? All the way across over here just to go on Hulse. So there is some connectivity issues with the exterior paths of travel in this neighborhood where I think it's just lacking focusing on the Aurorian, right? I know this might be beneficial for the developer to kind of keep costs where they are, but for Town of Aurora residents, we should be pushing for true connectivity for these exterior paths of travel to make sure that people are able to walk around, enjoy the neighborhood itself, walk their dogs, walk around with their kids and families in a safe manner without having to, like I said, go all the way down, cross here, and then go back across, right? So you're gonna have a lot of people jaywalking essentially, which is not something that we'd be promoting as town staff members.
Okay, so if you do have any more information, and send it to me, and I'll commit to at least have a discussion at council when it comes up.
Absolutely, I can get that over to you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Can you like zoom out and go to the other block? I just want to see something.
The west side, Matthew?
Yes, please.
Yep, and then where do you want me to go in on?
I just want to see something on the left side. I just thought of something, but
Block 3, 2, 1, where are we looking?
over here. Okay.
14, 8. Do you want me to zoom in a little bit more? I know you guys are on screens here.
Because I'm looking at like the west section of this development that's bordering Wooslocker Crescent.
Yep, yeah, the existing residential neighborhood there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just trying to see what the setback is from the road to their backyards. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Oh, those are houses there.
These are, yes, yeah.
Okay. So, because I know that it's kind of weird though, because that street there that they're building onto the existing one with the new houses, there's absolutely no sidewalks on that street.
Yeah, there was nothing here. And then I think the first sidewalk for Westlock is around this bend. So like where the next street starts up over here on the very west side. Obviously, we can't see on this site plan, but I have driven through this neighborhood and I believe it starts on that side. But you're correct. From what I recollect driving through here months ago, that I don't think there was any exterior path of travel that runs on the existing side. We wouldn't be able to comment on it in this application regardless, but I do think that you're right where there was no exterior path of travel there.
Well, we can comment on the new block.
Yeah, on the new block we can.
Yeah.
But these are the backyards on this side.
Oh, that's backyard. Are you sure that's backyards? I think those look like the fronts.
It's hard to say because they have an entrance point and an entrance point here.
But
so I can't say
it's
for
like-
certain.
This is the one block here. That's the townhouse block. That's a backyard. And then that's a new house facing onto the existing road.
Yeah, so these might be existing though, because it looks like the boundary is this gray line here, Matthew. You see it running along here? Yeah. So these are existing homes already.
No, they're not on Google.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just talking boundaries here. Like I can see, I can for sure make the comment in there. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying what it looks like is they're showing the lineage going here, but we can most definitely say that. So you're requesting for Westlock to have an exterior path of travel on this side?
Yeah, on the east side of Westlock.
Okay. No problem. So notes to counselor. And then we want exterior path of travel.
Because eventually, if they
Westlock
do,
east side.
if you do that and it ends at the curve on Westlock, in the future, if the town ever has money to spare, they can connect it to Wellington via the connection down the street.
Yep. Yep. So I've made that note in there.
Yeah. Okay, that's my comment. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
No, thank you, Matthew. Any other comments? So I don't think this is the end of us seeing this one. I can't say for certain, but we'll see if for sure, like Councillor Galler was mentioning, it will go through council and he'll have an opportunity to bring up her point. Matthew, go ahead.
I have another question. Top right of the page where your mouse is, where we're right here. Keep going up. Zoom into where the crescent and oops.
Yeah, I'm coming in. Yep.
Yeah, that's okay.
Crescent.
Yeah, so there's a sidewalk that ends here, but it doesn't connect to this sidewalk in the picture. So the new stuff doesn't connect with the old section.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is their. It looks like they ended at the driveway of this home. And you're right that there is no connectivity over to the existing neighborhood either.
Yeah, and then on Google, it says it ends, the existing sidewalk ends at 51, but doesn't go through 51 or 47's driveway.
Yeah, because we have over here on Mavernack, exterior path of travel that goes across through Kane.
Yeah.
We run it along Kane, exterior path of travel ends. And
then you can see the 1.5 and just above the IPS one, the IP5 or IPS or whatever that is. But
yeah, but I'm not seeing any like you said, no connectivity points here.
Yeah. So that's not good.
Yeah, so maybe there's that addition. I'm curious to see what they'll say here as well. Like we were talking about what was brought up at council, this existing or adding in an existing crosswalk or path here going across. And then, yeah, we can definitely point out this piece here, Matthew, which you're mentioning, going across through Kane and connecting to the existing path of travel. That's what I was mentioning. It's kind of, it's unfortunate that there's just these kind of like dead ends, right? Because even like when we were first looking at these applications, there was the request for this connectivity, right? Because this path usually ended at, similar to what we're seeing on the north side, Matthew, it was the same thing on the south side where this was ended. And so we requested for this this additional pathway to lead over to Wellington that was added in. Same thing with over here on the senior side. And I know we've talked about on the west side, but apparently the grade is just too steep for it to work. But we can most definitely bring up the Cane Crescent area, and then I too will try to find out a little bit more about what the plan is over here. But I'm assuming they're going to come back saying that there is a path of travel that leads through the south side over here. So I don't know if they're going to budge on this piece, but we can most definitely bring it up.
You'd think the cars are living in these houses, not the people.
Yeah,
They
well,
design them with sidewalks.
that's where I was mentioning. It's like we want to encourage people being active in the neighborhoods over here, right? So we got to make sure that there are proper paths of travel for people to actually be able to safely go through the neighborhood and enjoy their areas. Good discussion. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I could shed some light on the what's the road? West
Okay.
Lock. Those homes
West
there
Lock.
those were part of a previous approved subdivision. They're single family lots. The council has already approved those. That's why you see that line, that dotted line. So it's not part of this application.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's what I assumed.
And the Ewell Street connecting to Kane is correct. There is no connection from the old and the new.
Yeah.
So Matthew was correct. Yeah, we should address that.
Yeah.
Okie dokes, Madam Chair. I think we're good on this piece.
Okay, all right. So if there are no further questions, I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, so now to 6.4, our roundtable discussion regarding the Town of Aurora Accessibility Plan 2018 to 2024. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew, in a second.
Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, Matt, do you want to lead us on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Joanne, I didn't know you joined us. Welcome. I didn't see you at the beginning of the meeting here.
I've been here since 10 after.
You quietly snuck in.
I just snuck in, yes. I'm sorry. I sat down and I didn't realize the time had gone by.
That's all righty.
So.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So for the accessibility plan, just to give you guys an update, we have submitted the accessibility plan, the new one, our 2022 to 2026, to go over to general committee. Is it general committee or general council? I'm not sure. For February 15th. So that would be next week, where they would be having the opportunity to receive the plan. The recommendation is for approval or for council to give us direction on any kind of changes that they would like to see. So good news is our plan is going through in the next week for council to take a look at. And then we can start working on our objectives for the 2022 to 2026 plan. Since we're waiting kind of in that limbo stage, I wanted to kind of give you guys a breakdown of what I think was our plan to work on this year. So I'll kind of go through those very quickly. And then if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. So we're going to go ahead and continue with the finalized and finishing of the senior center ramp project. So we've gone ahead and put in all the electrical operators there ready on the west side of the building. Drawings are fully complete in order to create the ramp. And so we are going to go ahead with the construction of that piece this spring into summer. One of the good things is we are working on a grant opportunity. So we're hoping that we're able to successfully get the grant and have that basically pay for the ramp, as well as actually changing out and installing new wave operators for the facility itself. So we're hoping to get about $50,000 to $60,000 from this grant, and then that can go towards the ramp. Updating all of for those of you that have been to the senior center, they're mostly those old school kind of like hard push buttons. So we want to update those over to the wave sensors. And then we were requested about, I think it was 7 new additional ones. So that would lead into the additional washrooms that they have close to the back offices, as well as a couple of those recreation rooms leading along the back side of the building. So that's the plan with the senior center as a whole. We are going through that process right now in terms of application, and we should probably hear back in the next couple of months, which I will give you guys an update on that piece at our committee meetings. Next couple of pieces for this year, because council committees are ending, we're not going to be going into any other budgetary capital projects. So most of the things that we're going to be working on is going to be related to the policy pieces that we've been talking about and instilling good practice moving forward for the accessibility committee. We're going to go ahead and start establishing those employee resource groups. So connecting with our community services teams, having an employee resource group for that piece to make sure that our programs or rec centers, similar to the conversation that we were having earlier with Lisa, is addressed for any of the community concerns that people have in terms of accessibility in those areas, and other ERGs for diversity and inclusion as well. So we'll be focusing on creating those this year and being ready to be implemented and running for the year of 2023. Our campaigning is going to begin. So like I said, accessibility plan is going over to council next week. As soon as that goes in, our videos are ready. Thank you very much for working with Lisa and creating those bits. That was fantastic. So our video will get launched with that as well. And then we will go ahead with our quarterly awareness campaign moving forward on an annual basis. And so we can start discussing that as soon as we'll probably talk in March, because our first video will come out, and we'll start planning over for our next video as well. Get you guys involved one last time before we start closing up in the month of June. Past that, as you guys know, I've mentioned a couple of times, election is coming in. So we're going to be creating an election plan to make sure that accessibility is highlighted for all of our buildings. This year is going to be a little bit different. I might let Councillor Gallo jump in on the new ward system. It's definitely not my my arena, so I'm not too sure of how that kind of works, but I know we're switching over to a ward system. So the locations might be a little bit more limited. And from what I understood, it seems like the schools will not be having a PA day this year. And so we won't have these school district buildings in order to use for the election. So there is going to be some jumping around with where we actually have the voting happen. But we can chat about that once I kind of get through this list piece on this. And so the last couple of items that we're going to focus on this year, we're going to establish that outreach program with all of the high schools in Aurora in order to create an accessibility position moving forward on an annual basis. So we've been formally working with GW Williams. As you guys all know, Maxo was included in that prototype when we kind of worked on that a couple of years ago, which was fantastic. We want to open that up to all of the schools. So we're going to be working with all of the schools this year, letting them know about the program. And we plan on either, if it's a possibility, if there's co-op opportunities, we would like to launch for this year in fall. If not, it would be something for next year, because I know a lot of the co-op programs usually are from February on for high schools. But if we're able to do it for fall, fantastic. We'll go ahead and start doing that piece. Last two. We had a request come in, I think, since I last spoke with you guys back in November about the accessibility plan. There was a request to review our parking and bylaw policies and including accessibility in having exemptions towards individuals that have barrier-free parking passes. I took a look at the city of Toronto, our neighbors, to kind of see what they do have. We are similar because we do use a 24-hour rule for people being able to park on the majority of our streets. Essentially, we have the same program, but we will create an official policy specifically speaking to the accessibility portion of that, ensuring that people do have the ability to park for longer than 3 to 5 hours if there are some restrictions and pieces along those lines. So I've already started building that policy. I will bring it over to the committee probably April. I would say it's probably going to be ready for like a first kind of draft. So I'll bring that over to you guys for review, and then we can chat in more detail about any other things that you guys might think of that would be warranted to be included in that piece as well. And then lastly, audible pedestrian signal construction continues. So they're working on the drawings are pretty much done for Kennedy and Henderson. Construction should be starting this year. The APSs might be done this year. 2023 for sure. So, but it's still progressing with those pieces. So that's the current plan and goals for 2022. And like I said, council will be receiving our plan next week, and then we will for sure have guidance on being able to begin this work. So that was it in terms of updates from me on the accessibility plan. Any questions? And like I said, maybe Councillor Gallo can speak to the election portion on this too.
Jump in on the election portion. In terms of the difference between what we have now and the ward system, the voting process, the schools, accessibility, I have no idea how that's going to play out, but the biggest difference is currently we're councillors at large. So there's 6 plus the mayor that we represent all of Aurora, and we're moving into a ward system where the town is divided into various wards, and each ward will be voting a specific councillor for that area. So that's the biggest change.
From our this isn't a specific question to you, Councillor. This is just for the committee. From our previous election, for those of you that went through the process, most individuals with disabilities would have most likely used the online system. That would have made the most sense for people to be able to access and vote online. For those of you that went in physically, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of the sites have issues and they're old, and we kind of work with what we have over here. Any other suggestions from when we spoke about this in 2018? We do have some new members from when we first started that piece. Anything else that you guys can think of that would be good to include into an accessibility plan? Again, once we get more into this, I'll have something legitimate for you guys to take a look at, but just preliminary ideas, if there's anything else that you guys can think of that would be good to throw off right off the bat. While you guys are thinking, so just to let you guys know, like I said, we did the online system. We did have accessibility kits at all of our locations. We do site inspections to make sure that there's an accessible route to every voting location. Those are the main components that kind of go into this piece. Like I said, I'm meeting with our elections coordinator actually tomorrow to look at the site plans, not site plans, but the sites that they're looking to use. So I'll have a better idea of what we're going to be dealing with this year in terms of the election and ensuring that there's accessibility leading into these buildings. But that was pretty much our focus when I started. This is 4 years ago. So that was the first year that I kind of came into this position. So that's what we namely put out. We did accessibility training for all staff members and anyone that was involved in the election. But again, if there's anything else that you guys can think off the top of your heads to just highlight right away, I can definitely take that to the meeting that I have tomorrow with the elections team.
Matt, I'm just wondering about actual the election booths, like how, accessible those spaces would be. I don't know. I can't really name any specifics, but I just know that many times the actual sort of the location where you sort of pull up to actually do the voting can be rather difficult for someone in a mobility device. I don't know if that's something that can be improved. I think it seems rather simple to do. Even just having an accessible table or desk or something that people can access. Is that something that's been talked about, or is it already being done? Or
yeah, so in the past ones, because of the number of locations that we had, we usually depended on the location to supply some kind of tables. Like if there was schools, it was easy. Usually they had the tables with just legs, so people were able to slide in and whatnot. So it was very dependent on the location. We don't have enough tables as a municipality to just go to every single one. So we 100% depended on some of these locations, but I think it's a good piece to talk about ahead of time if it's within the budget to ensure that everyone at least has one. From what I remember, because I went through all the sites, every single site location did have an accessible table for people to be able to go in with their mobility device 4 years ago. So I don't remember fully, but I made the note as well just to ensure that that is a piece that we do include in this.
Okay, great.
My thought, in terms of accessibility, in terms of writing devices, has there ever been any thought to have a little bit of a larger pen or whatever device that we use to vote, having because sometimes they're so small, the ones that they have there, that it's really difficult for people to hold.
Yeah, so in the accessibility kits that I have for the locations, we have jumbo markers, jumbo pens, we have magnifying glasses, translation pieces. So the kits do have those. maybe we can do a part of, like I said, with the campaigning piece, we can do a better job of letting people know that that's available to them, right? Because unless they're kind of going in and requesting, for example, if somebody has cerebral palsy, right, having the dexterity to really hold on to like a thin pen, like you're mentioning, Haley, it would be good for people to be aware that they do have those devices available to them. And we do provide them. So that's a good point. And I think we can focus on that through the campaigning process for the election. Both great suggestions. Anyone else?
Can I just add in? Oops, sorry.
We're
Yes,
both on this. You can go ahead first. I'll go after.
Okay, thanks. I forgot to add one thing as I was talking about these sort of accessible spaces. Is for me, it's not just the idea of having a table that's set up. It's having adequate space. I've found that one of the biggest issues for me is that, you know, these, I mean, a lot of the times the tables are set up along the perimeter of whatever, you know, whatever it is, a large room or a gymnasium or whatever the case may be. But because they're always along the perimeter, the tables are often very close to the edge. And for me to be able to sort of maneuver my chair in and behind a desk is almost impossible. I always have to get someone to sort of drag the table out. So, I mean, a simple sort of suggestion or thing to implement would be just making sure that, you know, whatever is designated the accessible space, the accessible table is pulled out much farther than the average voting booth.
Yeah, that's a great point. Then that's going to be, I think, just a standard that I put for all of them, right? Like I don't even want it because like usually from what I remember, usually you have like a table that you're supposed to go to. So it's not even like you just have an accessible table and that's where you're going to go to, right? So we want to ensure that all of them are held at that standard. So absolutely, that's a fantastic point. I wrote that down. It's a really good one to keep in mind. Haley, you had a point too?
Yeah, so I was also just thinking kind of about the waiting and lines, because oftentimes I know, not necessarily during municipal elections, but in general, but I don't remember back to the municipal one if there was a long wait or anything.
Yeah.
But just that having those kind of waiting seating areas, especially for seniors and stuff, accessible.
Yeah, and we did have rest areas, but we will uphold what we have created in the new guidelines. So every 30 meters is what we're going to be gunning for. So exactly, if we have lines kind of leading into the buildings, we'll have more rest areas most likely this time around because we have our new guidelines that we have expectations on these pieces, right? So for sure we can include that piece as well. All good points, guys. Thank you. Anyone else?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, just for clarity. Did you say that all of the tables that are around would be accessible, or is there one specific area?
So the goal will be to have all the tables that are going to be voting to be accessible. Like I said, because we're so dependent on some of these locations supplying their own tables, it comes down to what they have. But I will make that a accounting piece for the elections coordinator is let us know how many of the tables are going to be accessible at these locations, and is there an opportunity for us to then distribute some of the ones that we have? So like at the Stronach or the Aurora Recreation Complex, we have tons of these foldable tables that we can then distribute to these locations, right? So we will make that effort to ensure that everyone is, but I can't recollect from back in 2018 whether or not that was the case.
Yeah, I guess if they don't have tables, you know, there'll be mobility issues because everyone is going to a specific, you know,
exactly, yeah,
A to Z or what you know, whatever.
Yep.
You know, you're going to a specific table, so I guess some more thought has to go into.
100%, yeah, and I have the note on there, and like I said, I'll definitely bring that piece up.
Okay.
I think from like again, I think we had one meeting already this month. It was very preliminary, but it looks like we're going to have a lot less sites on this election due to the ward system. So we should be able to distribute just the town of Aurora tables that we have far easier based on that. So I think this time around will be easier, but when I speak to Chad tomorrow, we can definitely clarify those pieces. Did anyone experience, this would be my last question to kind of just prompt any ideas. Did anyone experience any issues doing the online voting? I don't think any of you guys are using the assistive technologies that are available on these platforms, but from your networks or the communities that you're engaged with, was there any issue in the online voting process with being able to use it from what you guys heard? It's pretty standard, like most municipalities are all using the same platform. But I just wanted to see whether or not you guys heard anything or any rumblings about any issues. Okay, crickets, cool. So that's it from my end, Madam Chair. So I will have an update for you guys next month on council's decision on the report for next week. And then we will proceed with our plan as planned. So I'll give you guys that update next month for sure once we get to that point.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So if there are no further questions from anyone, I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. And so we have no informational items this evening. So that brings us to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Haley.
Matthew.
Thanks. Thanks, Haley. And Matthew, I'll use you for the second. That's great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that